Hello and welcome back to Overbooked. Today we are talking about Tinderbox. Tinderbox is a nonfiction book by Robert W. Fessler, and it's the untold story of the upstairs lounge fire and the rise of gay liberation. So I found out about this book through the podcast The Stacks, which I think I've talked about in my June TBR video, which I can link below. But I love The Stacks. The Stacks is a podcast about books where the host has on friends, authors, TV stars, etc., where they talk about book-related topics, other things, random things sometimes. And I just really like it because it's a diverse look of books. I'll link her website below, but otherwise you can find her on Spotify. I don't listen to her on Spotify, but I'm sure you can, right? What's not on Spotify? And I listen to her on Apple Podcasts. So check her out. I really like it, The Stacks. Anyways, back to our book talk. So I'm really grateful that I found this book, and especially in time for Pride Month. And I really, really love this book. And I'm not gonna lie, it was very hard to read at times. It's very eye-opening, for sure. Reading this as a white, straight female, I always feel a lot of guilt reading these books or other kind of diverse books, but I know that reading them helps me have a better understanding for humanity and how to relate and be a better person. Tinderbox was so touching and sad. I just wanted to cry, honestly. Tinderbox follows the story of the Upstairs Lounge, which is a gay bar in New Orleans, and it is set on fire on June 24th, 1973. 32 people die who are burned, and the way that he describes the actual fire and that day is horrifying, yet I could not stop reading it. It's like when you watch like a scary movie, except this is true. This fire takes place in 1974, which for me, I was born in 1994, so 20 years before I was born. But I feel like that's not that long ago. I feel like 1974, my parents were alive. My dad was probably like in high school. My mom was probably just entering high school. Like, it's just crazy to me it's not long time ago. Like, that was in our parents' lifetime. And how different things were. The fire itself wasn't recognized as a hate crime because a fellow patron of the bar got upset after he got kicked out and started the fire. And, that's kind of a touchy subject as well, because I don't know if it was ever really figured out, but I don't want to get too much into it because I think you should just read the book to figure out for yourself. But the response to the fire, I felt like, was a hate crime in itself. There was just not a lot of support for this community of people who suffered. And I think the worst part is these people were just people who were on the street or at jobs where some of these people who attended the Upstairs Lounge had friends who had died, were just saying just so crassly things like "let the homos burn," or just terrible things about their friends and people they considered their family. I just don't understand, because I don't understand those words or those actions or those intentions, because these people are human. I just don't get it. And that's probably my privilege talking again, but it's just terrible for me to think that even as somebody that you passionately disagree with, passionately just are just so against, but you would be okay with them burning alive. I just think that is so awful and so low of any person. I would never wish what happened to these 32 people on my worst enemy. I don't think that that's, it's just cruel. We get into the fire pretty quick, and then after that, the author follows into the community's response, the nation's response, and then the eventual rise of gay liberation, which is kind of disappointing because the upstairs fire could have led to this huge upheaval and uprising in New Orleans, but it didn't, and it kind of just made everyone more quiet. Nationwide, there was more things happening, but it just, in New Orleans, it was just very quiet, and people just wanted to get back to things how they were, and they didn't want to cause a scene, and it was frustrating for people who were ready to be activists and to take charge, and it was hard. Reading some of these things, there was like a pastor who came in and, trying to, lead this group of people into, we need to protest, we need to make sure these 32 people are recognized, and, people who had lost friends and, partners, lovers, wanted to stand up for them, but couldn't. They had just so much at stake. There was even one man who had heard the supposed person who set the fire say, like, oh, I'm going to burn this place to the ground, or something along those lines. But he did not want to go to the police because he would risk his career in the military by saying that he was at that bar, because it said that he was gay. And he couldn't do that because he would lose his job, he would be disgraced, and he would be outed. And that was just so terrifying. And it just is so sad because these people, not only did they lose so many people in a safe place to be, a lot of people considered this upstairs lounge, just a safe environment, a place that they could finally be themselves, was gone. And they had to, grieve, but in private. It's so much in themselves that it'd be internalized. They couldn't openly weep for their friends or talk about it with their coworkers or in their normal life. It just wasn't possible for them, which is, it was heart-wrenching to read. Because if I had lost somebody very important to me, I would want to turn to, my friends, and I would hope that my coworkers would want to understand and give me time and space to grieve, but these people did not have that opportunity, and it was heartbreaking. I think just like a disappointing thing about learning of this event was just like how little response there was. Like, there was only a couple of days where the local paper had it on the front page that this fire had happened, and there was no response from the mayor of New Orleans, and the governor, didn't really have any comments, and it was just kind of disappointing, frustrating, because that these people are on the wrong side of history, but they think that they are not, that they are, doing what people expect of them, but, whatever. Just know, just do what's right, just treat people right. You will always be on the right side of history if you just treat people with just basic respect and integrity. It just bothers me so much how much, what other people thought of you was so important. I thought this, the author did so well. He interviewed so many people, so many survivors of this fire, and people who were, linked to it, and did so much research. There was so much detail. You really got to know these people. I felt like I was suffering with them, and I just thought it was really well put together. I just think that we all need to take a minute to remember these tragedies and to learn from them, remember the people that lost their lives doing something, not doing anything wrong. They were just being themselves and enjoying themselves. Stonewall, Tinderbox, Pulse, these things need to be remembered, and they need to live on, so we know that these things have happened, and we must learn from them, we must grow from them, and we must not let those people die for nothing. I think this book does an excellent job of creating a way to remember these people, to honor these people, and to give these people a voice that they didn't have. You know, no one really cared when it happened, but I think the least that we could do is care about it now and to read about it and remember it. And even if you don't want to read about it, Google it, whatever. I think it's very important. And I think it's an amazing book. And I think it was really well written and took a lot of time and effort. And I really appreciate the author's work that he did for this book because I really enjoyed it. I'm always kind of the one that I feel that, you know, months like Pride or Black History Month or Women's Month or whatever month it is, I think it's very important to go and have fun. Obviously, go to the parades, go out, go celebrate. But I think it's also very important to take a moment to sit down and learn from the experiences of these people that we're celebrating. Learn about their struggles, their hardships, what they went through, and to just celebrate them in that way as well. Pride Month is coming to an end. It is now, what is it, June 23rd, so I think we have another week. But I'm just so grateful. I've been following a lot of people on Instagram, and I have a whole bunch of books I've added to my TBR, so I'm very excited to continue reading Pride, and not just in the month of June, but throughout the year and forever. Again, this was Tinderbox. Actually, I would really like to close this video out by just saying the names of the 32 people who died in this fire. You can listen to all 32. You can fast forward. Whatever you want to do. That's fine by me, but I would like to do that. So I'm gonna found a list. I may not pronounce all of these names right, so I apologize for that, but here we go. Joseph Henry Adams, Reginald Adams Jr., Guy O. Anderson, Joe William Bailey, Luther Thomas Boggs, Louis Horace Brassard, Herbert Cooley, Donald Walter Dunbar, Adam Roland Fontant, David Stewart Gary, Horace Getchell, John Thomas Golding Sr., Gerald Hoy Gordon, Glenn Richard Green, James Walls Hambrick, Kenneth Paul Harrington, William R. Larson, Ferris LeBlanc, Robert Lumpkin, Leon Richard Mabels, George Stephen Batia, Clarence Joseph McCloskey Jr., Dwayne George Mitchell, Larry Stratton, Willie Inez Warren, Eddie Hosea Warren, James Curtis Warren, Dr. Perry Lane Waters Jr., Douglas Maxwell Williams, unidentified white male, unidentified white male, and unidentified white male. You guys, Tinderbox, The Untold Story of the Upstairs Lounge, Fire and the Rise of Gay Liberation by Robert W. Faisler was an excellent book, and I highly recommend it to anybody. And that's all I have for today. I will see you guys next week.